The stars had always seemed peaceful to Commander Elena Vasquez. She had spent 20 years in space, first as a pilot, then as an officer, and now as the commander of humanity's largest orbital station. The Prometheus Rising floated above Earth like a silver guardian, watching over the blue planet below. Elena loved the quiet moments when she could stand at the observation deck and look at the stars. But today, the stars brought something terrible. The alarm started at exactly 0600 hours. A ship had appeared at the edge of the solar system. It was not a human ship. The sensors showed something massive, something that made Earth's largest vessels look like toys. Elena rushed to the command center, her boots echoing on the metal floor. Her crew was already at their stations, their faces pale with fear and wonder. "What do we have?" Elena asked. Lieutenant Park pointed at the main screen. "Commander, it's alien. No doubt about it. The ship is 3 kilometers long. It's heading straight for us." Elena felt her heart beat faster, but she kept her face calm. Humanity had known for 50 years that they were not alone in the universe. They had found old alien ruins on Mars. They had detected strange signals from distant stars. But this was the first time anyone had come to visit. She had always imagined this moment would be exciting. Now she felt only dread. The alien ship arrived within hours. It stopped near the Prometheus Rising and sent a message in perfect English. The message was simple and cold. It said that representatives of the Galactic Council would board the station. It said that humanity would receive them with respect. It said that resistance would be foolish. Elena ordered her crew to prepare the diplomatic bay. She put on her formal uniform and called for 2 Marines to stand with her. Private Chen and Sergeant Williams were the best soldiers on the station. They stood tall and proud, but Elena could see the worry in their eyes. She felt the same worry in her own chest. The aliens arrived in a small shuttle that passed through the station's shields like they were not even there. This simple act told Elena everything she needed to know about the difference in their technology. When the shuttle doors opened, she forced herself to stand straight and show no fear. The first aliens to step out were soldiers. Elena had seen pictures of insects on Earth that looked similar to these creatures. They stood over 8 feet tall. Their bodies were covered in hard black armor that seemed to be part of their skin. They carried weapons that hummed with strange energy. These were the Kethari, the warrior species of the Galactic Council. 12 of them formed 2 lines, creating a path for someone important. That someone was Ambassador Veltharak. He was different from the soldiers. His body was thinner, his armor lighter and decorated with gold patterns. His eyes were large and orange, and they looked at Elena like she was something small and unimportant. When he spoke, his voice came from a device on his chest that translated his clicks and hisses into English. "I am Ambassador Veltharak of the Dominion Hegemony," he said. "I speak for the Galactic Council. You will listen." Elena nodded slowly. "I am Commander Elena Vasquez. I represent the United Earth Government. We welcome you to our station." The ambassador made a sound that might have been laughter. "Your welcome means nothing. The Council does not ask for welcome. The Council demands obedience." He raised one of his thin arms, and a holographic display appeared in the air between them. It showed star maps, charts, and a long list of words in a language Elena could not read, but the device translated it all. And what Elena heard made her blood run cold. The message was a list of crimes. Humanity had committed many crimes against the Galactic Council. They had developed faster than light, travel without permission. They had colonized 3 star systems without paying tribute. They had built weapons capable of destroying planets. But the worst crime of all was simply existing. Humanity had grown and spread across space without submitting to the Council. This was not allowed. The punishment was tribute. The Council demanded 60% of all minerals mined on Earth and its colonies. They demanded 20 million human beings to be sent to Council worlds as workers. They demanded the complete surrender of all human military ships. And they demanded that humanity accept a Council governor who would rule over them forever. "You have 30 of your solar days to accept these terms," Veltharak said. "You will send your tribute fleet to the Council capital on Nexus Prime. There, you will kneel before the 12 elders and beg forgiveness for your arrogance." Elena felt anger rising in her chest, but she kept her voice steady. "And if we refuse?" The ambassador's orange eyes seemed to glow brighter. "Then we shall do what we have done to 17 species before you." The Vorn refused. Their world is now ash. The Pelax refused. Their people are now slaves. The Kresh refused. No one remembers the creche anymore. He leaned closer, and Elena could smell something bitter and strange. We shall make your worlds into warnings. We shall turn your cities into tombs. We shall scatter your bones across the galaxy so that all species know the price of defiance. Private Chen's hand moved toward his weapon, but Elena stopped him with a small gesture. Fighting here would accomplish nothing. These aliens had technology far beyond anything humanity possessed. One wrong move, and the entire station could be destroyed. We will need to discuss this with our leadership, Elena said. 30 days is not much time for such important decisions. It is more time than most species receive, Veltheric replied. Consider it a gift. The Council has watched your kind for some time. You are young, you are foolish, but you have potential. Submit now, and that potential will serve the Council well. Refuse, and your potential dies with your species. He turned and walked back toward his shuttle. His soldiers followed, their weapons still humming. At the door, the ambassador stopped and looked back. One more thing. Commander, do not think of running. Do not think of hiding. The Council has eyes everywhere. We have been ruling this galaxy for 40,000 years. We have seen every trick. We have crushed every rebellion. You are not special. You are not different. You are simply the next species to learn its place. Then he was gone. The shuttle lifted off and flew back to the massive ship waiting in the darkness. Elena watched it go, her hands clenched into fists at her sides. Sergeant Williams stepped forward. Commander, what do we do? Elena was quiet for a long moment. She thought about Earth. She thought about the 8 billion people living there. She thought about the colonies on Mars and Europa, and in the distant star systems humanity had made its home. She thought about her daughter, who was only 7 years old and loved to look at the stars just like her mother. Then she smiled. It was a small smile, but it was real. And somehow, that smile was more frightening than any weapon. We do exactly what they expect, she said. We discuss. We deliberate. We make them think we are afraid. She turned to face her officers, and her eyes were hard as steel. And then we show them what humanity is really made of. Lieutenant Park frowned. But Commander, their technology is far beyond ours. Their fleet could destroy Earth in hours. How can we possibly fight them? Elena's smile grew wider. Who said anything about fighting fair? The meeting room was deep underground, beneath the mountains of Switzerland. This was the most secret place on Earth. No satellites could see it. No signals could reach it. The leaders of every major nation sat around a long table, their faces lit by the blue glow of holographic displays. President Wei Chen of the United Nations stood at the head of the table, his hands clasped behind his back. You have all seen the recording, he said. You have all heard their demands. Now we must decide the fate of our species. The room exploded with voices. Some leaders demanded immediate surrender. The aliens were too powerful, they said. Fighting would only lead to death. Others called for war. Even knowing it was hopeless, they would rather die free than live as slaves. The arguments went back and forth, growing louder and more desperate. Admiral James Morrison slammed his fist on the table. The room went silent. Morrison was an old man with white hair and cold blue eyes. He had fought in 3 wars and had never lost a battle. When he spoke, people listened. You are all acting like frightened children, he said. Crying and screaming will not save us. We need to think. We need to plan. We need to be smarter than our enemies. A French general laughed bitterly. Smarter? They have ruled the galaxy for 40,000 years. Their ships are 100 times more advanced than ours. What can we possibly do against such power? Perhaps, said a quiet voice, we should tell them what we have been doing for the past 10 years. Everyone turned to look at the speaker. Dr. Yuki Tanaka was a small woman with gray hair and kind eyes. She looked like someone's grandmother. But she was the head of the most secret project in human history. Only a handful of people in the room knew what that project was. President Chen nodded slowly. Perhaps it is time, Dr. Tanaka. Please explain. Yuki stood up and pressed a button on her tablet. The holographic displays changed, showing images that made several leaders gasp in shock. They saw massive shipyards hidden inside asteroids. They saw weapons being tested in the darkness between stars. They saw thousands of ships, sleek and deadly, waiting in the shadows. 10 years ago, Yuki began. We discovered the truth about the galaxy. We learned about the Galactic Council. We learned about the species they had conquered and destroyed. We knew that one day, they would come for us. She paused, letting her words sink in. So we started preparing. The project was called Prometheus, named after the Greek god who stole fire from the heavens and gave it to humanity. While the public knew only about Earth's small defense fleet, the real work was happening in secret. Hidden bases in the asteroid belt produced ships that no one knew existed. Scientists worked day and night to develop weapons that could hurt the Council's advanced technology. We studied everything we could find about the Council, Yuki continued. We hacked into their communications. We captured their probes and took them apart. We learned their weaknesses. She smiled slightly. And they have many weaknesses. Admiral Morrison stood and pointed at the holographic display. The Council has not fought a real war in thousands of years. They are used to crushing primitive species that cannot fight back. Their tactics are old. Their strategies are predictable. They rely on fear and overwhelming force. He brought up a new image showing the Council's fleet formations. They always do the same thing. They send a massive fleet to surround a planet. They demand surrender. When the planet refuses, they bombard it from space until nothing is left. It has worked for 40,000 years. Why would they change? President Chen leaned forward. And you believe we can use this against them? Not just believe, Morrison said. I know we can. But we cannot fight them directly. Not yet. We need to be clever. We need to make them think they have already won. He outlined the plan that had been years in the making. It was called Operation Trojan Horse, named after an ancient story about Greeks who won a war through deception. The plan was dangerous. It was complicated, and it required everyone to play their part perfectly. First, humanity would pretend to surrender. They would send a message to the Council accepting all demands. They would gather the tribute and load it onto cargo ships. These ships would travel to Nexus Prime, the Council's capital, where humanity would appear to kneel and beg for mercy. But the cargo ships would not carry only tribute. Hidden inside them would be special forces, soldiers, weapons, and technology designed to cause chaos. While the Council celebrated their easy victory, humanity would strike at their heart. That's insane, said the Japanese Prime Minister. Even if we succeed in causing chaos, their fleet will still destroy Earth. We cannot win by attacking their capital. Morrison nodded. True. That is why the attack on Nexus Prime is only part of the plan. He changed the display again. For the past 5 years, we have been placing ships throughout Council space. Small vessels disguised as debris or asteroids. They are positioned near every Council homeworld, every major military base, every communication hub. The leaders stared at the map showing hundreds of tiny dots scattered across the galaxy. Each dot was a human ship, waiting in silence. When the signal is given, Morrison said, these ships will activate. They will disrupt communications. They will destroy sensor stations. They will make the Council blind and deaf. And while they are confused, something else will happen. Yuki took over again. We have made contact with other species that the Council has conquered and enslaved. The Valoran, the Ethkai, the Drexi, many others. They are tired of living under the Council's boot. They are waiting for someone to show them that resistance is possible. The room was silent as the truth became clear. This was not just a plan to save humanity. This was a plan to start a revolution that would shake the entire galaxy. President Chen closed his eyes for a long moment. When he opened them, there was steel in his gaze. How many of our people will die? Many, Admiral Morrison admitted. The soldiers on the tribute ships know they may not come back. The crews of the hidden vessels know they are flying into danger. But they have all volunteered. They all understand what is at stake. And if we fail, then humanity dies fighting, not kneeling. We show the galaxy that even the smallest species can stand against tyrants. Perhaps that courage will inspire others, even if we do not survive to see it. The vote was taken in silence. One by one, each leader pressed their button. When the results appeared on the screen, there was not a single vote for surrender. The next day, Earth sent its response to the Council. The message was humble and obedient. It said that humanity accepted all terms. It said that the tribute fleet would depart in 20 days. It said that humanity was grateful for the Council's mercy. Ambassador Veltherak read the message and clicked his mandibles in satisfaction. Another species had learned its place. The humans were wise to submit so quickly. He had expected more resistance from such a young and proud species. But in the end, They were all the same. They all bent the knee. He did not notice Commander Elena Vasquez's smile in the video message. He did not see the fire burning in her eyes. He did not understand that sometimes the most dangerous enemy is the one who appears to have already given up. 20 days. That was all the time humanity had to save itself. The countdown had begun. The tribute fleet looked exactly like it was supposed to look. 200 cargo ships moved slowly through the darkness of space, their engines glowing with soft blue light. They were ugly ships, built for carrying goods, not for war. They had no weapons that could be seen. Their shields were weak. Their crews seemed small and frightened. Commander Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the lead ship, the humble servant. She hated that name. She hated everything about this mission. But she understood why it had to be done this way. Deception required sacrifice. Victory required patience. Around her, the bridge crew worked quietly at their stations. They wore simple civilian clothes instead of military uniforms. They spoke softly and moved carefully. Anyone watching would see only scared humans doing what they were told. No one would see the steel in their hearts. Approaching Council border, Lieutenant Park announced, "We will enter their space in 10 minutes. Elena nodded. "Send the required identification signal. Let them know the tribute is arriving." The message went out, and within seconds, a response came back. Council patrol ships appeared on the sensors, surrounding the human fleet like wolves circling sheep. They scanned every vessel, looking for weapons or tricks. They found nothing because humanity had hidden everything too well. A council voice came through the communication system. "Human vessels, you are cleared to proceed to Nexus Prime. Do not deviate from your assigned route. Any attempt to flee or resist will result in immediate destruction." "Understood," Elena replied, keeping her voice humble. "We are grateful for the Council's guidance." The patrol ships escorted them through Council space. Elena watched the stars pass by and thought about the people on her ships. There were 5,000 humans in this fleet, soldiers, engineers, scientists, pilots. All of them were volunteers. All of them knew they might die. She thought about Private Chen, who had been on the station when the ambassador came. He was now in one of the cargo holds, hidden with 50 other soldiers behind false walls. He had told Elena that he wanted to fight for his family back on Earth. His wife was pregnant with their first child. He might never see that child, but his sacrifice could give the child a future. She thought about Dr. Yuki Tanaka, who was on another ship, carrying the technology that could turn this mad plan into reality. Yuki was 63 years old. She should have been retired, spending time with her grandchildren. Instead, she was flying into the heart of enemy territory, knowing that failure meant death. She thought about Admiral Morrison, back on Earth, watching and waiting. He had wanted to come himself, but the plan needed him to coordinate the hidden fleet. When the signal was given, he would send commands to hundreds of ships across the galaxy. Everything depended on timing. Everything depended on trust. The journey to Nexus Prime took 3 weeks. 3 weeks of pretending to be weak. 3 weeks of accepting insults from Council ships that flew past. 3 weeks of preparation, hidden from the eyes of their enemies. At night, when the Council scanners were less active, the crew worked in secret. They checked the weapons hidden in the cargo holds. They tested the EMP devices that would shut down enemy shields. They practiced their attack plans until every soldier could do their job in complete darkness. Elena spent her nights talking to the other ship commanders through encrypted channels that the Council could not detect. She made sure everyone understood their role. The timing had to be perfect. If even one ship acted too early or too late, everything would fail. Finally, Nexus Prime appeared on the sensors. It was the largest space station Elena had ever seen. It was bigger than Earth's moon, a massive structure of metal and light that hung in space like a mechanical god. Around it orbited thousands of ships from hundreds of species. This was the heart of the Council's power. This was where empires knelt and begged for mercy. "All ships, this is Commander Vasquez." Elena spoke into her communicator. "We have arrived. Remember your training. Remember why we are here. Remember that we carry the hopes of our entire species." The tribute fleet moved toward the station's docking bays. Council inspectors were waiting, eager to count humanity's offerings and make sure nothing was missing. They would check every cargo container. They would verify every number. They would make sure the humans had followed their orders exactly. What they would not find were the false walls in the cargo holds. What they would not find were the small drones hidden among the mineral shipments. What they would not find were the soldiers waiting in silence, their weapons ready, their hearts steady. The docking process took hours. Elena walked through the inspection with a team of council officials, answering their questions with humble words and lowered eyes. She showed them the minerals. She showed them the food supplies. She even showed them the list of humans who would be taken as workers. That list was fake, of course. The names were real people who had volunteered for a mission that might cost them their freedom. But they were not here to work. They were here to fight. Ambassador Veltherak came to inspect the tribute personally. He walked through the cargo bays with his Kethari guards, his orange eyes scanning everything with cold satisfaction. "You have done well," he told Elena. "Your species learns quickly. Perhaps you will be useful to the council after all." Elena kept her eyes down. "We only wish to serve." "Indeed." Veltherak's mandibles clicked. "Tomorrow, your leaders will come before the 12 elders. They will kneel on the floor of submission. They will beg forgiveness for humanity's crimes. And then, your species will truly belong to us." "We look forward to it," Elena said. That night, the human fleet waited in the docking bays of Nexus Prime. The council threw a celebration to honor their latest conquest. Music and lights filled the station as council species drank and laughed and congratulated themselves on another easy victory. They did not notice the human soldiers moving quietly through the shadows. They did not see the explosives being placed at key locations. They did not hear the whispered prayers of men and women preparing to change history. Elena stood alone in her quarters, looking out at the stars. In a few hours, she would give an order that could not be taken back. People would die. Friends would die. Maybe she would die. The thought did not scare her as much as she had expected. She pulled out a small photograph. It showed her daughter, Maria, smiling in a field of flowers on Earth. Elena had promised to come back. She hoped it was not a lie. Her communicator buzzed. It was time. Elena walked to the bridge and sat in her chair. Around her, her crew took their positions. On every ship in the fleet, the same thing was happening. 5,000 humans, ready to fight against an empire that had never known defeat. She thought about what Admiral Morrison had told her before she left. They think tribute means surrender. We will teach them it means revolution. Elena opened a channel to every human in the fleet. She spoke one word. One simple word that would echo across the galaxy. Prometheus. And the fire began. The explosion tore through the main power station of Nexus Prime. Then another explosion. Then 10 more. The lights across the massive space station flickered and died. Emergency systems tried to activate, but the EMP devices had already done their work. Shields fell. Weapons went silent. Communication systems turned to static. In the docking bays, the false walls of the cargo ships burst open. Human soldiers poured out like a flood, their weapons firing at surprise council guards. The Kethari warriors were strong and deadly, but they were not ready for this. They expected frightened tribute bearers, not trained killers with nothing to lose. Commander Elena Vasquez led her team through the corridors of the station, her rifle steady in her hands. Private Chen ran beside her, his face focused and calm. They had one target, the communication hub. If they could control it, they could talk to the entire galaxy. "Contact ahead," Chen shouted. A squad of council soldiers blocked their path. Energy beams filled the air, bright and deadly. Elena ducked behind a corner and returned fire. One alien fell, then another, but more were coming, always more. "We don't have time for this," Elena said. She pulled a small device from her belt and threw it. The flash grenade exploded in a burst of light and sound. The council soldiers stumbled, blinded, and confused. Elena's team rushed forward, cutting them down before they could recover. They reached the communication hub in 6 minutes. The doors were sealed, but Dr. Tanaka was already waiting with a bypass device. The old woman worked quickly, her fingers dancing over the alien controls. "Almost there," she said. The council thought their codes were unbreakable. They forgot that humans are very good at breaking things. The doors opened. Inside, terrified council technicians raised their hands in surrender. Elena did not want to hurt them. They were not soldiers. They were just workers doing their jobs. "Get out," she ordered. "Run. Tell everyone what is happening here." They ran. Elena took their place at the main console. Tanaka connected her device, and suddenly, Every screen on Nexus Prime showed the same image. Elena's face, looking directly at the camera. "This is Commander Elena Vasquez of the United Earth Navy," she said. Her voice went out to every corner of the station, to every ship in orbit, to every planet in Council space that could receive a signal. The Galactic Council demanded that humanity kneel. They demanded our resources. They demanded our people. They demanded our freedom. We are here to give our answer. She took a deep breath. The answer is no. Across the galaxy, humanity's hidden fleet came alive. Ships that had floated dead in space for years suddenly powered up their engines. They struck at Council military bases before anyone knew they were there. Communication stations went dark. Sensor networks went blind. The Council, for the first time in 40,000 years, could not see what was happening in their own empire. Admiral Morrison sat in his command center on Earth, watching reports come in from across the stars. His plan was working, but he knew the hardest part was yet to come. "Send the message to our friends," he ordered. "Tell them the chains are breaking, on a dozen conquered worlds." That message reached the ears of species who had lived under Council rule for thousands of years. The Valoran, whose planet had been stripped of its resources. The HFY, whose children had been taken as servants. The Drexy, who remembered stories of freedom from before the Council came. They had been waiting. They had been preparing. And now, they heard the signal they had prayed for. The Valoran struck first. On their homeworld, workers in the mining pits turned their tools into weapons. They attacked the Council overseers who had abused them for generations. The fighting was brutal and bloody, but the Valoran did not care. They had forgotten what hope felt like. Now they remembered. The HFY were more subtle. They were a peaceful species, gentle and kind. The Council used them as servants and technicians because they were good with machines. Now, those same machines became weapons. HFY technicians sabotaged ships and stations across Council space. Engines exploded. Life support systems failed. The Masters found themselves helpless as their servants turned against them. The Drexy had been enslaved the longest. 3,000 years under Council rule had taught them to appear weak and broken. But they had never stopped dreaming of freedom. Hidden in their homes were weapons passed down through generations, waiting for this day. When the signal came, the Drexy rose like a wave, overwhelming the Council forces that had grown lazy watching them. Ambassador Veltherac stood on the bridge of his command ship, watching in horror as his empire crumbled. Reports came in from everywhere, each one worse than the last. Nexus Prime was in chaos. The fleet was scattered and confused. Species that had served the Council for millennia were suddenly fighting back. "This is impossible," he hissed. "This cannot be happening." A young Kethari officer approached him. "Ambassador, the human commander wishes to speak with you." Veltherac's mandibles clicked in rage, but he had no choice. He needed to understand what was happening. He needed to find a way to stop this madness. Elena's face appeared on his screen. She was dirty and tired, but she was smiling. That smile made Veltherac's blood run cold. "Ambassador," she said, "are you enjoying the view?" "You have made a terrible mistake," Veltherac snarled. "Our fleets will crush you. Your planet will burn. Every human will die screaming." Elena shook her head. "Look around you, Ambassador. Your fleets are falling apart. Your allies are turning against you. Your empire is built on fear, and fear only works when people believe they cannot fight back. We have shown them that they can." Outside Veltherac's ship, a Valoran freighter rammed directly into a Kethari warship. Both vessels exploded in a ball of fire. The Valoran crew had known they would die. They had done it anyway. That was the power of hope. That was what the Council had never understood. "Your empire ruled for 40,000 years because no one challenged you," Elena continued. "You grew comfortable. You grew lazy. You forgot what it means to face an enemy who has nothing to lose. Well, Ambassador, now you remember." Veltherac cut the communication. He turned to his officers, his voice cold and hard. "All ships, target the human vessels, destroy them all." But his orders came too late. Half his fleet was already burning. The other half was surrounded by ships from species that had once been servants. The Council forces fought bravely, but they were not prepared for this kind of war. They had forgotten how to face real resistance. On Nexus Prime, Elena gathered her team and prepared for the next phase of the operation. The station was in chaos, but they had not won yet. The Council still had forces spread across the galaxy. The war would be long and hard, but for the first time in 40,000 years, the Galactic Council was afraid. For the first time, they faced enemies who would not kneel. For the first time, they understood that their empire could fall. Elena looked at her soldiers, at the brave men and women who had followed her into the heart of enemy territory. They were tired and wounded. Many of their friends had died. But they were still standing. They were still fighting. "This is just the beginning," she told them. "We have lit the fire. Now we make sure it spreads. Outside, across 1,000 worlds." That fire was already burning. The war lasted 3 months. Not because humanity could not win faster, but because Commander Elena Vasquez refused to become what she was fighting against. She gave every council species a choice: join the new alliance or go home in peace. She would not force anyone to submit. She would not demand tribute. She would not rule through fear. Most species chose to join. The Valoran became humanity's closest allies, their warriors fighting side by side with human soldiers. The HFY used their technical skills to repair and improve the Alliance's ships. The Drexy, free for the first time in 3,000 years, sent poets and artists to remind everyone what they were fighting for. Even some council species changed sides. The younger Kethari, tired of fighting endless wars for rulers who did not care about them, laid down their weapons and asked for peace. Other species, seeing which way the wind was blowing, quickly declared their loyalty to the new order. Only the oldest council members, the ones who remembered the glory days of empire, continued to resist. The final battle happened above Nexus Prime, in the same space where humanity's tribute fleet had once arrived. But now, hundreds of ships from dozens of species flew together under a new flag. The Council's remaining forces were outnumbered and surrounded. Their ancient warships, once feared across the galaxy, looked old and tired against the Alliance fleet. Admiral Morrison commanded the battle from his flagship, the Earth's Pride. He watched as Council ships fell one by one, their crews surrendering rather than dying for masters who had never cared about them. It was not the glorious final battle he had expected. It was simply the end of something that had lasted too long. The last council ship to surrender was Ambassador Veltharek's command vessel. The ambassador himself was taken prisoner, along with the remaining members of the 12 elders. They were brought to Nexus Prime in chains, a sight that would have been unthinkable just a few months ago. Commander Vasquez was waiting for them in the Great Council Hall. This was where species had once come to kneel and beg for mercy. The floor was still marked with circles where the tribute bearers had been forced to stand. The walls were still decorated with trophies from conquered worlds, but the throne of the council was empty now, and Elena had no intention of sitting in it. The prisoners were brought before her. Veltharak looked smaller than she remembered. His armor was dull. His orange eyes had lost their glow. He was just an old creature now, facing the consequences of his empire's cruelty. "Do you remember what you told me?" Elena asked him. "You said you would make our worlds into warnings. You said you would turn our cities into tombs. You said you would scatter our bones across the galaxy." Veltharak said nothing. What was there to say? "I could do the same to you," Elena continued. "I could destroy your homeworld. I could enslave your people. I could make you pay for every crime the Council has committed over 40,000 years." She paused, letting him feel the weight of her words. "But I won't." Veltharak looked up, confused. "Why?" "Because I am not you." Elena walked closer, her eyes meeting his. "Your empire was built on fear and punishment. You ruled because others were too afraid to resist, but fear is a weak foundation. Eventually, someone always stands up, someone always fights back, and then your entire system falls apart." She turned to address the assembly. Species from across the galaxy had gathered to witness this moment. Valoran and HFY and Drexy, humans and former council members, warriors and workers and children, all of them watching, all of them waiting to see what humanity would do with its victory. "We will not build an empire," Elena declared. "We will build a confederation. Every species, no matter how large or small, will have a voice. Every world will be free to govern itself. We will protect each other, trade with each other, and learn from each other. But no one will rule over anyone else. Never again." The hall erupted in cheers. For many species, this was the first time they had ever been offered equality. Some of the older delegates wept openly. They had never believed they would see this day. A new charter was written, called the Charter of Equals. It took weeks to negotiate because every species wanted to add something, wanted to make sure their people would be protected, but eventually, everyone agreed. The charter was signed in the Great Council Hall, on the same floor where tribute had once been paid. Elena stood at the window, watching the signing ceremony from a distance. She was tired. She had not slept properly in months. Her body ached from wounds that had not fully healed, but she felt something she had not felt in a long time. Hope. President Chen approached her. He looked older than she remembered, worn down by the stress of leading humanity through its greatest crisis. But he was smiling. "You did it," he said. "You saved us all." Elena shook her head. "We all did it. Every soldier who fought, every scientist who worked in secret, every person on Earth who hoped and prayed. I just happened to be at the front. What will you do now?" Elena thought about her daughter, Maria. The girl was 8 years old now. Elena had missed her birthday while fighting a war on the other side of the galaxy. She had missed so many things. "I'm going home," she said. "I'm going to watch my daughter grow up. I'm going to sit in the garden and look at the stars. And I'm going to let someone else save the galaxy for a while." Chen laughed. "You've earned it." Before she left Nexus Prime, Elena visited Veltherac one last time. The former ambassador was in a comfortable cell, awaiting trial for his crimes. He would spend the rest of his life answering for what the Council had done. It was more mercy than he had ever shown his victims. "I still don't understand," Veltherac said. "You were a young species. Primitive. We had ruled for 40,000 years. How did you defeat us?" Elena considered the question. She had thought about it many times. The answer was simple, but it was also everything. "You saw us as we were 50 years ago," she said. "You assumed we would stay weak forever. But humans don't stay anything forever. We change, we adapt, we learn." She leaned closer. "Every time you pushed us down, we got back up stronger. Every time you told us we couldn't win, we found a way. That's what you never understood about us." "And what is that?" Elena smiled. It was not a cruel smile. It was almost kind. "We never kneel. Not because we're too proud, but because every time we fall, we get back up. Every single time. And eventually, the thing that pushed us down gets tired. But we never do." She left him with those words. There was nothing more to say. 6 months later, the first joint exploration fleet launched from Nexus Prime. It carried crews from 12 different species, all working together as equals. They were going to explore the unknown regions of the galaxy, to find new worlds and new life. Not to conquer, not to demand tribute, just to discover. Elena watched the launch from Earth, Maria sitting on her lap. Her daughter pointed at the ships rising into the sky, her eyes wide with wonder. "Where are they going, Mama?" Elena hugged her daughter close. "Everywhere," she said. "And maybe when you're older you'll go with them." Maria smiled. "I'd like that." Above them, the stars burned bright, no longer a source of fear but a promise of endless possibilities. Humanity's tribute to the galaxy had not been resources or slaves. It had been an idea that freedom, once ignited, could spread across the universe like fire, and fires, once lit, are very hard to put out.